Well, man, if I was an escargot eater, and I kind of am, I mean, I've eaten them before. I don't know much about these snails, but it must be the height of snail activity in the environment here because they're everywhere. They're all up the side of the road. There's like 100 in a couple of square feet, and so I guess that means there's thousands and thousands and thousands of snails. They're next to the road, so the escargot jokes are, waiting to happen. I always feel bad for them because they come on my back, like in the path to my backyard kind of place, in the my backyard kind of place. They see, I heard one smush there, and they're unavoidably like it's impossible not to smush them, so I guess you shouldn't feel guilty about eating them. Vegetarians, what do you think? Snails, the impossible not to smush things? They're right on that border, they are. There's not many people who eat insects, I guess, and the old story is that you can't avoid crushing insects as you walk the earth in your human-sized shoes. It's pretty difficult to avoid crushing snails, and it might be more humane to pop them in a pot of boiling water before they're actually smushed. I don't know whether that's true or not, and I guess you'd have to be a snail to really know, or you'd have to be a cohort of snails, and you'd have to have a questionnaire in some afterlife kind of place. How would you ever do that? How would you'll never know another's pain, is what I heard. You see, so although in many instances I've actually felt, since I have physical symptoms that have to do with feeling kind of phantom pains, it's sort of part of the way I am. I've imagined at times, at least, that they've been other people's pains, because sometimes they follow descriptions of the type of problem that the person is having. I had the thing happen to my foot the other day. Have you heard about sympathetic symptoms? One person in a family develops an illness, and then another person also develops the illness independently of the first person. In other words, a non-contagious illness, something like appendicitis, and then the other person gets appendicitis. And next thing you know, they both had appendicitis, even though appendicitises aren't really contagious. So why did they both get appendicitis? Was it something they ate? Maybe it really was something that had a commonality. I've heard of sympathetic illness before. I'll have to look into it more. It seemed like it was possibly a good diagnostic tool for the shaman type, to be able to feel a little bit of, feel what the other person is feeling, and then, having had experience with those kinds of problems before, having some idea of how to treat it. It's a dangerous area to feel that one does, because, of course, the severity of things says a lot about the, what's really going on. One person's pain in their foot is quite a different thing than another person's pain in their foot, depending on the severity of the pain and what's actually the source of the pain. So, what is that telling us? Snails, even if the snails got together in heaven afterwards and said, "Oh man, that really hurt," and the other snails said, "Well, that wasn't so bad," could you really trust them? Because maybe one has a different idea of, a different set of experiences that led up to the pain. In other words, one's idea of bad pain is different from the other. Look, there's a deer. Hi, deer. Do you see it? Do you see the deer? I gotta try and zoom here. Oh, it wagged its tail and it's off. Oh, it went over to the other deer. Now there are two. Now let's see the. Well, they went into the bushes. Somebody brought a whole bunch of apples here, and these apples aren't usually here, and there's no apple tree here, so they put a whole bunch of apples here, and I guess the deer probably are eating them. The air is not too good after that truck passed. Oh my goodness. Well, so snails and deer, which would you rather eat? Apples? We could eat apples instead. I guess all of our nutritional needs aren't necessarily taken care of by apples. Apples and snails would probably do us. Apples and deers would probably do us. The deers are cute and sort of furry and nice, and the snails are like tiny and weird, and they don't have much of a personality. And look, I just stepped on one again. Oh my god. Here's a live one. He's like making a break for it. I worry about the deer here crossing the road because it's so busy here sometimes. Anyway, snails, deer. How many snails until you have a deer? There's probably enough snails at the side of the road here to make up for one deer, which is actually a tremendously large amount of snails. So there's another good reason for the deer equation. Although, if you don't have a fridge and you kill a deer, you got to eat a lot of stuff before you're having a economy of deer. I guess there are ways of preserving the meat by making smoked meat and things, salted meat and things out of other ways. It's a lot of work when you could be gathering snails and cooking just as many as you need. I don't know enough about these snails to gather them, so I won't gather these until I've got more knowledge. Are they all the same kind of snail? They look like the escargot snails, I guess. For some reason, I think I saw a YouTube video where the guy was cooking snails, and they weren't very different from these, although the video was made in England, so since this is Canada, I'd wonder if they're actually the same kind of thing. Well, I'm glad I talked about that. I'm glad we saw the deer. I'll be looking to see how they show up on the camera, and here we are again in my old familiar sort of haunt, the Scarborough Bluffs Marina area. Scarborough Bluffers Park, Scarborough Bluffs Marina, Scarborough Bluffs Beach, the Cathedral Bluffs, the yacht clubs. I don't know the names of the yacht clubs. I should probably go and find out. And if anybody has deer on the menu, I'll be wondering where the third deer, because I usually see three of them together is when I see them together. And that's a pretty good wildlife video, I guess. The snails they were easy to find, but they were more abundant than they usually are. And then the deer showing up when the camera was already on is a new one to me. That's I have several pictures of deer that show that they're sort of approachable, at least by the likes of me. And the deer, snails, apples. Good night.